Patty Cox on the show today, and she is our government contracting advisor in Missoula, based at University of Montana. And we may have Lillian join on. She's from our Great Falls Center. I don't see her on yet, so we'll have her wave if she hops on. But the three of us are going to be helping Roz, answer questions through the chat. So for those that have worked with us, I think you have a pretty good idea about PTAC. PTAC stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center. And PTAC, what we do at the PTAC is we are a resource for your company. We specialize in helping businesses navigate the world of government contracting, which can be a lot of steps and processes, and to be successful in pursuing that kind of customer, you have to learn how. And that's really where PTACs come in. We serve in the role of a teacher, advisor, coach. We help with everything from, if you're just maybe starting out in government contracting, maybe you need to get set up on different registrations, et cetera. From there, we would take you through some learning on, some market research, kind of figuring out where you fit in the purchasing spectrum, what agencies make the most sense for you to pursue, how to find opportunities, how to develop dialogue with agencies. Maybe you come across a RFP like we're going to go over today, or an RFQ, and you haven't, you're not sure, maybe you haven't done it before, and they can be a bit intimidating because especially the RFPs are quite long. And we can help you work through how to understand how to respond. Today is the workshop on an RFP, but really the idea is for you to contact the PTAC advisor in your area and get that one-on-one assistance. Now, PTACs are nationwide. All of the states have PTACs. It is a federally funded program. We get our funding from Department of Defense, specifically administered by DLA, Defense Logistics Agency. But all the states have PTACs. In Montana, we have 9, or excuse me, we used to have 9, we have 6. And pretty much anywhere you are in Montana, there's a PTAC advisor to help you work through. Roz and I are in Billings, and I mentioned Patty was in Missoula. We've got Christy in Kalispell. We've got John in Hamilton, Carly in Lewistown, Lillian and Shannon in Great Falls. And I think I got everybody, didn't I? Okay, good. But go to montanaptac.org. That's where the map of our service area is. That's where all of our contact information is, et cetera. So take advantage of our assistance, because we can really help you save a lot of time and frustration, and really help you bridge that gap between thinking about government contracting and actually doing it, and getting some business opportunities out of these contracts. So with that, I'll hand it over to Roz. I think she's got some housekeeping things she wants to go through. Roz?
Yeah, just a couple of things. Mostly just, try to keep your mics on mute. If you have questions, put them in the chat. You're welcome to ask questions through the presentation, and we can stop and answer them as we go. And then hopefully we'll have some time to have a Q&A session at the end. I think that's it. And Patty and Deanna and Lillian did get on, so they can help manage those questions as we go. And I think we'll just get going here and get right to it. Can you guys see my slides okay? Okay, perfect. So just for an overview, this is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to briefly review how to find opportunities that are over 25,000. I'm going to pop into beta.sam.gov and just kind of show you how you can find some of these opportunities and where to find the bid documents. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this. I have a YouTube video out there. You can also get some one-on-one assistance from your PTAC, but I want to try to focus as much on the RFQ and the RFP review today. Because we could probably be here all day on just how to review an RFP. So in the interest of time, we're just going to briefly go over some of this stuff. I do want to go over some things to consider on how to make a go, no-go decision. For both RFQs and RFPs, we are going to review some really common federal standard forms that you will see. And then we will do a high-level overview of how to put together your RFQ, RFP. Again, we're not going to get really in the weeds. It's just really meant to give you some basics on how to get you started and a really good, strong foundation of what you should look for. And then, we definitely want you to reach out to your PTAC advisor for further questions on specific opportunities that you may find. And then I do have a nice slide on top 10 tips of what to consider and watch for. So we will go over that as well. I did invite everybody that was registered to a folder on box.com to view all the materials. Most of them are just attachments. You don't necessarily have to pay attention to those, but I did include the solicitations that we're going to go over, and there's highlights and some notes in there. So that'll be a good reference tool for later if you, as maybe you're filling one out, or if you have questions or want to go over it later, that'll be good for you to have. So if you didn't get an invite, let me know and I can get you the link later. So you can always email me if you need to.
Roz?
Yes.
And you want everyone to ask questions through the chat as we go, is that correct?
Yeah, that's fine. As long as if we don't get to all of them as we go, that's why I want to try to save some time at the end. But I'm okay with asking questions as we go through the chat. Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay, so first we'll go into finding opportunities. So the website that you go to now to find opportunities, if you don't know, is beta.sam.gov. And this website right now is in the process of moving multiple federal sites into one. The next one I think is going to be your SAM registration. It's not currently there, but on GSA's website, they have a date in April to move that over. So right now your SAM registration is still separate, and everything else is not on this website that we're going to look at now. Keep in mind, beta.sam is only going to show you opportunities that are over 25,000. And if you want some more detailed instruction on how to find these opportunities, you can go to our YouTube page, and this is a live link here, which you have this presentation in that folder that I just talked about on box.com. So you should have, these are all live links, okay? All right, so let me just get out of my presentation really quick. Okay, so I'm already logged in here to beta.sam.gov. So you will use your SAM credentials to log in if you've never been to this website before. You may have to fill out some profile information when you first log in. But this right now, I'm in my workspace, and to get to contract opportunities, I'm going to click on this magnifying glass here, and it opens up a search bar. I'm going to click on this drop down arrow here and go to contract opportunities and search. And I'm not putting anything in this box because you sometimes get some strange results. So right now we are looking at anything and everything that's out there that's a current posting on the street right now. So, it's pretty basic, same, there's all your filter criteria is here on the left. You can search by, the agency that you want to do business with. You can search by your NAICS codes or your PSC codes here. There's lots of different ways to search. I'm not gonna really go into that too much, but let me just open up one of these here on this first page just to kind of show you something. Maybe this one. This could be a bad example, but we'll see. So when you actually open one of these opportunities, some of the things that you want to pay attention to are when offers are due. Those are always listed here. You'll see the codes that are assigned to it here. If it is set aside for small business or another socioeconomic category, that'll be listed here. You'll always see a short description as well. And this was a bad example because there's no attachments, but there is point of contact information here that you want to pay attention to if you need to contact the contracting officer. Let me see if I can find one with documents. Let's do, These are award notices. Otherwise, I would go into one of those. Let's see if there's a document on this one. But basically, all of your bid documents are going to be listed on the posting. So this one only has one. It looks like there's some links here too. Sometimes there may be one, there could be 5, there could be 10. But these are the attachments that you want to pay attention to in the documents. It's going to have your solicitation with all your instructions. It's going to have any pricing sheets that they provide, any scope of work, drawings, maps, all of that will be here. So you need to understand how to use this website, and that's where you get your bid documents, okay? So let's go back here to my presentation. Okay, so making a go, no-go decision, these are just some things to consider. You know, especially when you're going, if you're thinking about responding to an RFP, RFPs can be really time consuming. So you really want to make sure that's the right opportunity and that you're right for the opportunity to respond to it, because it'll just take you a long time. It could be a lot of wasted effort. So the first thing that I suggest is define the scope of work. This could be called something else. It might be called performance work statement, specifications. That's scope of work. I can't think of any other terms. Patty, Deanna, you might think of something else, but you want to find that in those bid documents that are on the beta.sam.gov, and you want to read through it, understand it, make sure that you can do it, and it's something that you can do, you want to do, you have the ability to do all of that. You have the people, you have the time to execute it before you go much further. Locate the deadline. When, what's the date? What time is it due? Do you even have enough time to respond? Again, RFPs are time consuming to respond to, and if it's due tomorrow, I would say you probably should just let this one go, because you probably don't have enough time to put together a good proposal to, that's good enough to win. So think about that. Is your business capable of executing the scope of work? Again, the time, the people, the money. What else do you have going on in your commercial work? Do you have the time? Do you have the money to put up to front this project and put into it? Because most government contracts are a situation where you'll get paid after the work is done. There are some exceptions to that, definitely.
Roz, you somehow got muted.
Weird. Okay, that's okay. Do you have subcontractors lined up, is what I was saying. Do you have to go out and try to source all of that right now? I mean, again, that all takes time. So you really need to consider all of those things. Even if you are capable of doing the work, is it worth it? Are you going to have to mobilize to get to the location? Is it worth it? Is it going to be too much trouble and effort? Is it going to eat into your profit too much? Are you going to end up not getting any profit at the end? The last thing you want is to get into an extensive project and then not really make any money at the end. And that has happened. So definitely keep that in mind. And then what is your probability to win? Compare yourself to your competition and others that may be bidding on it. Do you have a lot of experience in this type of project? If the answer is no, if you don't have any or very, very limited compared to your competition, then maybe now is not the time to be responding to this RFP. Maybe you need to get some more commercial work under your belt that's more related to these projects. And you'll know more about what I mean when we talk about RFPs, because I keep getting muted. Sorry, I'm not doing that, I promise. And so, RFPs, they ask for a lot of past performance history. So, are you going to be able to beat out your competition? Is there an incumbent? So is this a contract that somebody currently holds and they're recompeting it? Do you think that you would be able to unseat that incumbent? That could be difficult, especially if they performed really well and the government liked their performance previously. That may be pretty hard to unseat them. So just keep in mind those things. And I'm not trying to say these to deter you from applying, because, sure, if you don't apply, then you definitely don't have a chance to win, but maybe you're just not ready at that point in time. So just keep those things in mind. Let's see here. So now let's talk about some of the common standard forms. Standard forms are, you see them, they're usually the first page of your solicitation, and they are usually included with your offer, almost always. I haven't seen it very often where they're not. Sometimes agencies will provide their own forms. Not all standard forms are a required document, but many times they are. These ones that are listed are just some common ones that you'll see, and we're just going to look at them too really briefly to just so you kind of see what they look like. Like I said, they are a lot of times included with your offer as the cover page. You may not always see them. There's lots of forms out there. These are just a few of the most common ones. There's optional forms. It's really endless, honestly. There's a lot. So let me pull up my list here, and we'll just look at some PDFs. So this first one is, I think this is the 1449. Yes. So 1449 is a common form. It's for both commercial supplies and services. And you're going to see it here in a few minutes when we look at one of our RFQs. These top parts are going to be filled in from the government. They're going to mark if it's set aside, the size standards and your NAICS codes, all in this area here. Really what you're going to be filling out is the information in the offer information. So 17A and maybe 17B, if that applies. You're going to see, a description here. You will probably have to fill out your unit pricing amount over here. And definitely you want to sign. You're going to put your signature and everything here at the bottom. That's really important, because that you're telling the government that this is my offer and everything on here is correct, and this is what I'm submitting to you. So this is second page. This is all filled in by the government, and this will be pre-filled too, so it won't look so blank when you see one. The next one is the 1442. This is used for construction related RFQs RFPs, I'm sorry, RFPs, and any like alteration, repair. I've seen them on, well, we're going to look at one actually for it's a pump replacement RFP that we're going to look at. Again, most of this is going to be, a lot of this is filled out already. They're going to mark it on, what type of RFP it is. All of this, you will, have to fill out your information in here on the second page. This is where you'll put a lump sum. And we're going to go over this more because this is one of the forms like I said, that we're going to look at. This one is a little different. You're going to acknowledge your amendments on this form here. This is going to be filled in by the government. 1447, pretty similar to the 1449. A lot of this is filled out by the government. You're going to fill out part 13. There's going to be some description of what they're looking for here, and then you'll probably fill in some pricing here, etc. Again, you're going to sign your offer. Same gig. Standard Form 33, you will see these a lot when the procedures with FAR Part 15 are used. We don't have to necessarily get in the weeds on that, but again, some of this, you're going to have your part to fill in. Most likely will have to be included with your offer. And then this last one is the amendment form. And I wanted to show you this because these amendments are used to not only they amend the solicitation, but they can also amend a contract. And in most cases, if not all, you will have to acknowledge and sign these forms and turn them in with your offer, acknowledging the changes. And so just keep that in mind, that it's not just, oh, let me fill out my standard form and my proposal, etc. You're going to have to include this information as well. Because if you don't include this information and it's required, they can throw out your offer for not being responsive because you haven't included everything that they've asked for. Okay. So I think, unless there's any questions about those, we can move on. Again, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on that. Just wanted to give you guys a look. And those materials, again, are all in the box folder that we were looking at. So, oops. Okay, so today we're going to look at 2 RFQs, requests for quotes. One is going to be for services and one is for supplies. And we're just going to review each section and look at some things to pay attention to. And if you guys have questions as we go, just put them in the chat, okay?
Roz,
Yes.
can you just briefly highlight just some subtle differences between RFQ, RFP?
Yeah, I mean, like, just,
just to clear the jargon up, I guess the RFPs are generally more formal, more involved types of solicitations,
yeah,
typically over the simplified acquisition threshold of 250,000.
yeah.
And so RFQs, generally speaking, are under that, usually for commercial items, you know, less formal, not as much information is required. Usually they're looking for a quote, a pricing, generally speaking. So
They
both
are,
important,
yeah.
but different.
Yep, definitely. I mean, you may see some RFQs where they want a little more information than just the pricing. I have seen that a few times, but in general, yeah, they're pretty simplified. Just pricing and turn it in, and then you're good. Yeah, I think that's, unless you guys have questions about that, I think that pretty much covers it. So so this first one, can you guys see this okay? Okay. It's for a gooseneck trailer. And it's, you can see here, well, at the very bottom, I'll show you. Here is our standard form 1449. So that's how you know what form is being used. You're always going to have the solicitation number somewhere here at the top. This is a good reference point for you if you ever have to reference it in an email, or if you're going to look it up again in beta.sam. This is the number that you want to pay attention to. This is the issue date here. That's not as important as the due date, which is going to be listed here in box 8 on this form. This one is what was, I guess, December 30th at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. Definitely want to pay attention to the time zone because that will make a difference. It's going to, you know, if it was Central Time, it would be an hour behind that. So just pay attention to that. Because again, if you don't submit your offer on time, you're non-responsive and they're not even going to consider your offer. So you really need to pay attention to that. You're going to always have somebody's contact information here at the top. It's probably a contracting officer. It could be I don't know, it could be somebody else. It could just be a point of contact, but this is usually the contracting officer. This is going to be the office that is issuing the RFQ, or the RFP is going to be up here. They're going to mark if it's set aside up in this category, or this box up here, box number 10. This one happens to be unrestricted, so that means anybody can bid on it, okay? It's not set aside for anyone. This is the NAICS code that's assigned to it, so this is how they're classifying what it is that they're buying. This is the size standard associated with that NAICS code. So if this were set aside, let's pretend for a second it was set aside. Any business that bid on it would have to have 750 or less employees in their business to be considered a small business. So being small can differ depending on the NAICS codes, okay? But this one is unrestricted. They have marked it as a quote here. I did mention that you will see some of these forms interchangeable. So, you know, if they could use this for an RFP if they needed to, if they wanted to have more information. They may issue a proposal, say they were following the procedures in a different part of the FAR, for example. They may issue this as an RFP. So this is where you're going to start putting your information. You can, you know, if you can write it in legibly and scan these into your computer to send it, if it's email. If you have a way to edit the PDF, type it in. If you can do that, I would recommend it just so it looks nice. You know, this section here, 18A will be, you know, I have all these notes here on the left. They'll be left on blank on purpose, or it'll be filled in by the government. Here's where they're going to start talking about what it is they're buying. Has 50-ton folding gooseneck trailer here. They just want one. This is actually where you're going to, this is the delivery date and the place that you're going to deliver it. And this is actually, you're going to see this in more than one spot. You're going to turn this form in with your offer. So you want to put your pricing here, and you'll actually see you are going to need to put your pricing multiple times. You're going to put it here, and then there's another page that you'll put it on. So you just want to make sure and fill out these forms completely, and then fill out any subsequent documents that they ask for completely, okay? Here's where you sign, and you print your name and your title, and you're going to put the date that you sign it here. Again, you're signing your offer. This is just a continuation page. There's only one item. If there were multiple items, this page may be filled out. So my comments here talk about 32A and B, or 32A through 42D. Again, this is all going to be filled in by the government. You don't need to fill this in. So now we're going to start getting into the details. So this talks about, you know, what this is. Here's again the solicitation number. They've labeled it a request for quotes. They're telling you you need to provide all the supplies and materials to provide this item. They're telling you where you need to send it to. So this is all important information to read through. So you can see that there's details in here you need to pay attention to. Here's a pricing sheet. So again, you're going to have to put your pricing here again and turn both papers in with your offer. Okay. And if you keep going, you're going to start getting into your clauses, clauses that apply to the contract. You're going to get, there's going to probably be a list of your reps and certs, which are part of your SAM registration. These are all, will eventually become common terminology to you the more you get into government contracting and you see these things, okay? So really anything, it'll be incorporated by reference or full text. Some of these, I think these first few are, some of them are full text, and then they'll start being just by reference here. So really anything with an X are applied to this solicitation and ultimately your contract. So, you know, if you want to pay attention to these things. I didn't mark all of them with an X. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to get into what all these mean. I wouldn't even know. I would have to read them again. So, you know, we know the FAR a little bit, but we always have to reread it anyways. Keep going. More clauses, more clauses. Okay, end of clauses. All right. So now here's the statement of work. So this one's pretty easy and straightforward. They simply want the trailer, and here's all the specs. And it needs to meet all these specs. That's what you need to be delivering to the government. Can you do it? That would be basically your go, no go decision. Can I source this product and get it to the government? Do I sell these on my lot? Can I just load it up and send it over? All the specs are in here. We're all keep going. And then here's where your instructions start. So instructions on RFQs and RFPs are very important. You need to follow the instructions, okay? General information to offers on submission of quotes. So again, they're reiterating you need to send these in by the 23rd, 1 p.m. Actually, hold on. That's actually a discrepancy. So this one said the 30th, but it says the 23rd down here. So that would be something I would talk to the contracting officer about. I didn't realize that until just now. So you will find discrepancies like that once in a while. So, you know, if you do see those, you need to bring it to the attention of the contracting officer to get clarification. Is it the 23rd or is it the 30th? And there might have been an amendment on this one. About that, I'm not sure. I'd have to look. But again, so you need to clarify that and turn it in by the date and time that they provide. Here's where, oh, here it is, quotes and response, I see. And then it's telling you who you need to send it to. Okay, so they want it emailed. They do not want mailed or faxed offers. So this has to be emailed. Okay, and they tell you who to send it to here. In these specific instructions, they don't tell you that you need to submit that standard form 1449. They don't say, oh yes, fill this out and turn it in, whereas other instructions will, because you'll start to see differences between agencies and contracting officers and what they say and what they don't say. But if you were asking me as a PTAC advisor, well, how should I submit my offer? I would say you need to fill out the standard form 1449 and that pricing sheet and email it to them, okay? Here are some more clauses. I think this is starting to get into your reps and certs.
Roz?
Yes.
Kim Blaine says that the date discrepancy is due to that's the last day they'll answer questions regarding the RFQ before you submit.
Right. Yes, Kim. Yes. Thank you. I was scanning with my eyes and my eyes were getting ahead of my brain. These are all incorporated by reference. And then here we do have we have the evaluation criteria. So this is telling you, you know, the award from this contract, from the solicitation, who's going to be responsible. So who do they think is going to be able to provide the trailer that they're asking for, and, you know, who is going to submit their offer the way that they've asked. You know, those are responsible and responsive offers. And who can provide the best value to the government. You know, who probably price, who's going to be able to offer the best price in this situation. And then past performance says that will be considered. They don't tell you how in this situation, but the government can look in different ways. They have their own systems that they'll look in. They'll look in SAM, see if anybody's been debarred or has any other active exclusions on their SAM. They'll look in some of the performance history systems that they have to see if you have any ugly marks against you. This example doesn't give you that information in detail, but you will see in other examples that they will talk about that more. But the government reserves the right to do that. So just keep that in mind, that they will use other resources to make that decision on you. And I talk about that here in these comments. So again, you'll have a reference to go back to if you need to. And that one's it. That one's really straightforward. It's a supply. It's one item. You know, can you provide the item and at what price? And fill in your information on your forms completely and correctly. Sign it and email it to, I think her name was Tracy. So, are there other questions about that you guys see? No. All right, so let's move on to the next one. This one has to do with services. So You will see these standard forms. Again, that's a 1449, and it does say commercial, but commercial items can be supplies or services, okay? Again, solicitation number, when the offers are due. In this example, it's 100% set aside for small business, so only small businesses can bid on it. So, you know, is your average 5-year receipt 19.5 million or less for this NAICS code? Then yes, you can bid on it. You're a small business. Again, it's an RFQ. They mark it here. Again, same information you would fill out on the last one. This one is multi-year, so it's a base year and I think 4 option years. So, and we'll see it in the instructions, but you're gonna fill out an Excel spreadsheet with pricing, but they do want this form turned in, so you're gonna have to transpose your pricing onto your standard form and sign it and turn that in with your offer.
Roz?
Yes.
Kind of looking at both the RFQs. Charlie has a question.
Okay.
He asks sometimes the pricing schedule that is on the standard form is really simple, but your pricing could be complex. In the pricing sheet, what if our price format is different than that of a few fields that they provide? Will additional cost sheets be accepted? And I guess what I would say is that in a lot of these RFQs, they're a firm fixed price. And so you don't have to really provide the background of your pricing when you're putting your quote together. You're going to you're going to fill out just what they ask for. If they want a unit price and an extended price, you'll include that. If they want price for option years, sometimes that is the case. And I think Roz will be going over that in this one for janitorial services.
Yeah.
But a lot of these that are under the simplified acquisition threshold of 250,000 that are set aside for small business are often set up as firm fixed price. So you have to do all the work on the back end to understand what your price is. But you don't have to always provide all that detail, like a whole budget or something like that, to the government when you're making your offer.
That's right. Yep. Definitely the gooseneck trailer one, you don't need to. I think this one does want a breakdown of the pricing on this example. We're going to look at it. But Patty's right. And like right here, you're going to put a lump sum for each of your option years here. And the price breakdown, if they provide a form, fill out their form and turn it in. In this case, and I'm going to get to it, I don't think they asked for, but they didn't provide a form. So my suggestion in that case would be to either ask the contracting officer, you know, hey, was this a mistake? Do you actually want my pricing breakdown? And if you do you have a form, or can I provide my own on like an Excel spreadsheet? I think that's a fine question to ask them. We don't have to spend too much time on this. We already did. More clauses. Again, they're incorporated by reference and X's on which ones apply. I kind of want to get down to like the instructions. That's a little more. This is just a highlighted, you know, so, you know, these rates may be adjusted only as a result of revisions to prevailing labor rates. So they're not really, you know, whatever you submit to them is what it's going to be, because I believe this one is firm fixed price. So you're not going to be able to change your rates on your option years after you turn this in. This one has prevailing wages, so you do need to pay attention to that. They usually tell you what it is, like they do here. They will also provide, and it was an attachment listed on this one. They'll list the prevailing wages and the labor categories for that area. And you need to, if you don't pay your employees that amount, you need to pay them this amount on that job. If you pay your employees more than this, you can. You don't. That's great. More power to you. Pay your employees more, so you don't feel like you have to pay $14.50 when you pay $16 an hour or something like that. So I do want to point out this one has some AGAR clauses. This is the agricultural supplement, or the USDA supplement to the FAR. So you have the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, that tells agencies how to buy products and services, but each agency also has their own supplement, which may have additional guidelines for their agency specifically. So they have a couple of clauses referenced here, okay? And these are all available for you to look at online too, if you need to read through them. So here they do have a list of attachments. These attachments, again, they were all in beta.sam.gov as downloads, okay? And I did include them in your documents, your reference materials in that box.com that I invited you to. So if you want to look at them, you can. Okay, so here we have the instructions on this one, okay? Failure to provide all requested information may result in the proposal not being considered. So just another reminder, you have to give them everything they're looking for. They want it submitted again through email to Kelly, okay? And here's what they're telling you need to submit. So one, original fully completed SF 1449. So we talked about that, that's your offer page. Complete block 30, which is your sign, you are gonna sign it. And acknowledgement of all amendments. So we talked about that standard form 30. You need to, again, read and sign and include all those SF30s if there are any. I think there was one on this one, and include that with your offer. Quote pricing document. This is where it gets a little, iffy, and I wrote some notes about it. So they didn't provide the only thing they provided was the bid schedule in this example, and all it wanted was pricing per year, a monthly pricing, and then a year pricing for each option year. But then if you read number 2, they want a breakout, but they didn't include a sheet. So again, I think that would be a question for them. Is this a mistake? Sometimes these contracting officers copy and paste stuff from other solicitations. So maybe in this situation, they didn't really need it, but it got stuck in there. So ask them, do you really want the cost breakdown? Okay. And then, do they have a form, or can you make one yourself and send it to them? Because you're not going to put your price breakdown on the standard form 1449 or on this bid schedule. It's just going to be a lump sum. So when you read through the scope of work and all the details in it, you need to say, okay, this is what it's going to cost to do all of this work. That's what you're doing. And we're going to put a lump sum for each option year on the standard form and on the bid schedule, and a breakdown if that's really what the agency is asking for. Okay. Site visit. So the site visit attendance request. So in this case, there's a mandatory site visit. So you need to send an email requesting the date and the time to attend, and they'll keep track of attendance, so they'll know if you were there or not. And if you didn't go and you turned in an offer, guess what? You're out. Let's see, evaluation again. This one is going to be lowest price technically acceptable. And so this is a really common thing that you see, a common source selection criteria that you see in the federal government. And so what the government's going to do is they're going to evaluate those who are technically acceptable. Okay, well, company A and company B, they can do it, they're going to use their evaluation criteria to determine that. And then, okay, well, which one then once we determine who is capable, who now has the lowest price, then that person's going to be the winner. Okay. And in this, actually, in this one's nice, they actually tell you what their definition of technically acceptable is, and what that means as part of their evaluation methodology. Okay. Here they have their reps and search detail. This one, so it's a section in your SAM registration, and you will see sometimes that they may ask you to fill out your reps and to turn in your reps inserts. You can either print them off from SAM, which I recommend, that's easiest, or you can manually fill them out from the documents in here, which I don't recommend doing. Sometimes they have a form in here that says, here, mark this box if your SAM is current, basically. You might see a few different options there, but if they ask for your reps inserts, I definitely recommend printing them off from SAM, because that is much less time consuming. And let's see, I think that is it. Let me double check. That one is it. So that was it. I mean, it's filling in the form and submitting the documents that they asked for based on a scope of work, lump sums, and then the breakdown if that's a requirement. Is there any other questions about that? I hope I answered I hope Patty and I answered the breakdown question, well enough for whoever asked that question. If they have any more clarification, let me know. Okay, so let's move on to the RFP, because this is the one that's more involved. This one is with Indian Health Services. They have a nice cover sheet here. I'm gonna first, let me pop back to my slides. So I want to talk about the uniform contract for a moment before we get too far into it. Look at that, I had all my slides memorized. I didn't even need them. Okay, so for the uniform contract format, this is a format that is outlined in FAR Part 15, which is contracting by negotiation. I'm not going to get too in the weeds on that, but it's used for RFPs, and it's a way that to have the solicitation organized in sections. And it's nice because once you kind of become familiar with this format, it's easy to reference the sections, as needed. And then as you see more RFPs going forward in the future, they follow this format, you're like, oh, well, I already know about this format and I know what I'm looking at. It becomes familiar and it's easier to read and look through, okay? I really like it when you see these. You don't always see it. If it does follow FAR Part 15, you'll see it. I think also some in FAR Part 14, you may see it also if it's from time to time. But these are, more complicated over, like you said, over the simplified acquisition threshold, which is $250,000. So if it's over that dollar amount, that's when you're going to see this more formal RFP. Okay. Again, you want to locate the scope of work and read that first to help you make your go, no-go decision. In this example, we're going to see a standard form 1442 because it has to do with construction. And in this one, there was a lot of attachments. There was 10. We're not going to go through all of them, but again, they're in the box if you need to look at it. So let's just start reviewing it, because I want to be able to get to your guys' questions and have a discussion if you need it, okay? Solicitation numbers here on their nice cover page, and they list all the sections again here. They have a due date of September 14th at 2 p.m. Mountain time or earlier. And then here's your standard form 1442. This one is a negotiated RFP, so they are following FAR Part 15. Solicitation number, you can see everything's filled out by the agency that needs to be here. Rita is the contact. And here's a nice, some more description, what it's for, and there's different project numbers here, and they're, where it's located. This one is set aside again for small business. And here's the size standard here. They did put a magnitude of construction is between 250 and 500,000. So that's kind of the range that they're looking at. Proposal date and time again. And here they have a Q&A. They list the question and answer period. So let's see, no later than noon on September 4th. and you want to submit them in writing to Rita. Okay. I mean, after that period, questions about the solicitation and the scope of work and what's involved, they're not going to answer them. They can answer some questions, maybe administrative stuff like, oh, what form do you want me to use? Little things, but they're not going to, anything that may cause, any question that may result in a change, they're not going to answer that, because if that time has passed, we're moving on. We're moving on from that now, okay? Here, you're gonna, again, the same information is repeated. You see a lot of repeated information. Here's where you're gonna fill out some information here at the top. They do want your lump sum pricing here. Again, you're gonna provide them more than just this, but for this form, you're gonna include the lump sum price here. Here's where they want you to acknowledge your amendments. We did talk about this. So this form is a little different than the other ones. You don't have to turn in your SF30s. You just need to reference the SF30 amendment number 1, 2, 3, 4, and the date, and then sign that you've accepted them. So this one's slightly different than that other procedure for the other form. Here we have a price schedule. Again, you're going to do a lump sum. They give you a description of the supplies and services here. This, let me see, I'm just trying to look at my notes. This page is also going to be turned in with your offer, and you'll see that in the instructions. This does talk about breaking down your pricing structure for them. They are going to want that. This talks about their invoicing process. So invoices need to be approved by their core. These are all things that you need to pay attention to. Invoicing is important if you were to win it. Of course, this is obviously if you win it. Let's see, keep going here. And I'm sorry, we're in section B already. So A was the standard form, B is your pricing and supplies and services list, okay? And that's the end of this section. So I did put a note in here about, who can make changes to a solicitation or a contract, because they mentioned the contracting officer representative above. So just make sure that only if you're in the middle of a contract, that if changes need to be made, you're going through the contracting officer. They're the only ones that can make changes to your contract. If you're talking to the core or the contracting officer representative, maybe they're the engineer or the facilities person on site, and they're like, oh yeah, right. You're right. We need to make this, that needs to be changed. They can't do it. It needs to go through the contracting officer. So just because you run it through them does not mean it's going to happen. You could end up, and I've had a client do this. They went with what the core said, and then they had trouble getting paid later because the contracting officer wasn't aware of it. And so then the burden was on them to prove that they had these conversations with the core, and then the core and the contract, everybody had to kind of agree that, yeah, these changes really did need to be made before they could get paid. It was a mess. So don't get in that mess, okay? Section C, so, they didn't include a lot of information in here because they're all attachments. So attachments J1 through J6 are going to talk about all of this information. The construction document, schedule of items, their past performance questionnaire, the self-calculation sheet. Those are all attachments, and they're included again in the box if you want to look at them. So they're not including them in the body of this, they're including them as separate attachments. So you have to make sure you download them and look through them. Section D talks about packaging and marking. This one talks about equipment and supplies. If it's sent to the site, it needs to be marked. It tells you, how you need to mark your equipment when it's on site. If you were sending supplies, they would talk about how it needs to be packaged and sent to the government. It would tell you what you need to do here. So pay attention to this section as well. This is going to talk about inspections. You know, you want to, I made notes in here, make sure and read and understand and comply with this section. You know, you will get an evaluation when this is done. So in this section, they talk about final inspection and, you know, cleaning up after you're done and leaving the site clean. You know, there's a lot of different information in here. So you want to make sure and comply with it, because when they do their evaluation on you, that can be part of it. And you don't want them to give you ugly marks for something that was pretty simple to abide by. So make sure that you follow everything in here if you are awarded something, an RFP like this. Okay, we're going to keep going. Section F, deliveries and performance. You know, talks about actions that would be taken if a contractor's employees are, you know, they're endangering, you know, people or property, if they're under the influence when they're on site, you know, what can happen. The government, you know, saying that they reserve the right to remove personnel. You know, and it talks about making sure there's somebody on site all the time to you know, from your company to manage everything. So you can't just let people wander around and do whatever they want. There needs to be somebody there all the time. And that talks about it here in this section. Again, I know we already talked about it, but it talks about who the contracting officer is and who the core is. And it even I highlighted here, and it says they have no authority to make changes to your contract or any documents. So again, we can't stress that enough. You don't want to get in trouble there.
Roz?
Yes.
Can you back up just a tad and talk about the notice to proceed, to pay attention to that?
Oh, yeah. Where?
You're right there.
Did you see it?
I'm moving my other screen out of the way here.
Yeah, okay, I'll find it. Okay, yes. So,
This is different every time.
Yeah, yes, that's true. This one has been filled. This is 90 calendar days. So commence work under this contract within 10 calendar days after the date the contractor receives the notice to proceed. Prosecute the work diligently and complete the entire work within 90 calendar days of the notice to proceed. So once you're awarded the contract, then the government's going to tell you when to start. And then then this one says you need to be done within 90 days after you've been told that you need to start. So, and this, yes, and then Deanna's right. This could be 120 days. I've seen different days here. Anything else to add to that, Deanna?
I would just say, wait till you get that notice to proceed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a formal notification. It's a formal document. And so I would be looking for that before I do too much.
Right. Absolutely. Section G, contract administration data. Again, like I said, it talks about the core not having any authority to do anything. There's other information in this section, you know, how are payments processed, how invoices should be submitted. You know, if you do business with a Department of Interior agency, for example, you're probably going to have to do invoicing through IPP or invoice processing platform. So, you know, this is all good information that you need to understand. Let me know if you guys have questions. They talk about just, I mean, lots of information in this section. Talks about correspondence, who you should be sending correspondence to. Rita, they have a core in their email here. They have a snail mail address. You know, this is who you should be talking to. ID badges. I mean, it just really starts. It gets detailed. You're going to be working on government property. More, here's their invoicing information, how it needs to be marked. Let me know, that's in a nutshell what that section is about. Let me know if you guys have questions about that. Then this section talks about the subcontract or special contract requirements, but subcontracts is one of them. I made notes in here, this kind of talk, it could be anything that doesn't really fit anywhere else. So subcontracting information, what your insurance requirements are, I think, let's see. Oh yeah, when you can be at the site, the times, what days, holidays that you don't need to work, the office is closed, how to submit your payroll, because this has a requirements for submitting payroll of your employees that are working on site, process for changes that need to be made regarding the work, which we briefly went over. It's all in here. I think even the pre-construction meeting is in here. So if you were awarded this, you would need to attend a pre-construction meeting before starting. This has, this talks about, it's all in here. Here's your work hours, insurance, 500,000 per occurrence. These are all things that you're going to have to abide by if you're awarded this contract. Okay. Operations, storage, with equipment, etc. Here's the pre-con meeting. Materials on site. Again, you want to comply by all of this stuff because you're going to be evaluated. You want to get a good evaluation. Let's see. I'm going to keep going here. Keep going. I just don't want to miss any of my notes. Here's your payroll, submitting payroll. This one is being performed on a reservation, so they have an extra requirement regarding TARO, or Tribal Employment Rights Office. I'm not that familiar with TARO, so I don't know if Deanna or Patty's more familiar. I don't want to speak to that. I'm not as familiar with that.
Well, generally the essence is that the expectation is, to the extent possible, that Native American people would be hired to be subcontractors or employees and work on that particular job on the reservation.
Yep.
There's more to it than that, but that's the overarching spirit.
Okay, again, your clauses, applicable FAR clauses. We don't have to spend a lot of time here, but as you can see, there's a pattern. Even RFQs and all RFQs and RFPs have applicable clauses to what's going to apply to the contract. Okay, so section J, gonna start getting into your attachments in a little more detail. These ones, again, were all separate. They were in beta.sam, so you're gonna have to download them separately. There could be times when you might see them in the same documents. They just might be at the end. You just gotta look for them. Sometimes it's not as obvious, but make sure you pay attention to the list here, and then you locate it where it is and pay attention to it. Section K is your what we call your reps and certs. Again, we talked about that. It's from your SAM registration. I have to look, I can't remember what they wanted you to turn in, but we'll look at it. But here's where I was talking about, paragraph D, or applies or does not apply. Sometimes you may be asked to just mark one of these boxes and turn this sheet in with your offer. You just have to, it just depends on what their instructions say. Okay. Going. Telecommunications and video surveillance. Patty, you want to talk about that? No, it's a new question in your SAM registration. So, in a nutshell, if you supply telecommunications equipment, there's certain Chinese companies that you're not allowed to sell to the government. And then on the other side, they also want to know if you use any telecommunications equipment by those prohibited Chinese companies, is really what it's saying. And the companies are listed in the FAR.
I guess what I would also add is that sometimes in the K1 is the basic SAM questions, but some of the other parts of the reps and certs have some fill-ins that you may need to complete. Those examples might be like what you mentioned earlier, the USDA's supplemental question of responsibility matters. Occasionally you can check the box that says my SAM is good, but you may also have to carefully read through some of the other sections in this part to make sure that there are no other fill-in types, like I don't sell the banned telecommunications equipment.
Yep.
So, I mean, and that's where PTAC can kind of help you understand, like, what is everything that has to go in this package and before you send it off to the government.
Exactly. Thank you, Patty.
And I would say make sure your SAM is current. You know, just if you haven't been in SAM for a year, before you submit an offer, especially of this magnitude, make sure that you've gone in and refreshed and updated the information in SAM, because you're basically saying that what is represented in your SAM registration is accurate and current. And you know, if your sales have changed significantly, or if other, you know, maybe your socioeconomic category has changed, there could be any number of things, but make sure your SAM is current. It's a dynamic situation. It's not just set it and forget it.
That's right. And you are not even you're not even allowed to submit a bid unless your SAM is active. That's a fact. So section L is very, very, and very, 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 very important. So this is where you're going to start getting into your instructions. I put a note in here of, you know, about here's the procedure for, you know, needing clarifications or drawings, or if there's discrepancies in the solicitation. You know, like I said, a lot of the times these agencies will copy and paste from old solicitations to put together their new ones. So it would not be out of the ordinary to be reading and then all of a sudden come to something that just doesn't quite make sense with what you've been reading. So if you see discrepancies like that, you need to bring those to the attention of the contracting officer, because that could affect how you respond to this, especially when it's a proposal. I mean, you wouldn't want to respond incorrectly, because then you probably wouldn't win it. So if you see something that is strange, you know, bring it up to them. And they have a process here for that. You need to bring it up to Rita, which she is the contracting officer. Section L also talks about the type of contract. This is going to be a firm fixed price construction contract. And there are lots of different types of contracts in the government. This is just one of them. I think probably see this one a lot. And here I have a definition of what a firm fixed price contract provides, or what it is. It provides for a price that is not subject to any adjustment on the basis of contractor's cost experience in performing the contract. You know, it's based upon contractor has the maximum risk. Government has the lowest amounts of risk. So, you know, what you submit to them is what it's going to be. Okay. Let's see, this one has an affirmative action requirement in it. They have some goals for minority and female participation. You can see the percentage here. I'm not going to get in the weeds on this. I have referenced some FAR sections for you to read for further information. That gives you some more detail on what this means in these two FAR clauses that are listed. And Patty and Deanna, you can jump in on that if you want to. Like I said, I didn't want to get too far in the weeds on that. Probably it could be its own presentation. Section L also mentions the Buy American Act for construction materials. Again, I referenced the FAR section that talks about this a little more detail and what the Buy American Act means. If it's commercial or COTS items, commercial off-the-shelf items, the Buy American Act doesn't apply. If it's not, there is a domestic preference for products that are made in America, and you would have to disclose in your offer what is not made in America, because again, you basically are kind of penalized a little bit on your pricing. So, just keep that in mind. But again, cost items, commercial office shelf items don't apply. So, which I think most constructions probably cost items, I would guess. This talks about a bid guarantee that you are going to have to provide to them. 20% of the bid price or $3 million, whichever is less. I mean, that's really common in construction projects. So that's a big thing. If you are a really small construction firm, for example, maybe you don't, it's, you don't quite have it. You may have to partner with someone, and you may have to be like a subcontractor. These are a reflection of your financial statements. Isn't that right? Right, Deanna?
Yes, I would say whatever you do not wait until the last minute to understand this and make it happen. Bonds, often you have to get through your surety, and it is a function, how bondable you are and to what extent, how much is largely a function of your company's financial statement and your personal financial situation. And credit score, they look at all of that. And so sometimes you even have to, get a bond through your bank. It can actually be a banking product, that you get to put the bond up. So it's nothing to wait around on, and because it can take time. And so, there's different ways to do it, but it's something that you need to pay attention to right away. And so, if your financials are in order for your company and on the personal side of things, and, you have, established banking relationships, et cetera, it shouldn't be too hard to come up with the documentation you need, but it takes sometimes a while for your surety to work through, the requirements and get you the right product for what you need for this. So, and they're all different. This one is saying 20% of the bid price, but they're all different. Depends. So.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. I talk about procedure for protests. Won't get in the weeds there. That's kind of its own ball of wax. There can be protests after the fact. You could be protested if you win, and there's a whole set of procedures that go in that, and it gets in the weeds with legal. With lawyers, can get pretty bad. But here they talk about a site visit. This one has an organized site visit for this date, and where they're going to be. Let's see. I think it says yes. It says operators or porters are urged and expected to inspect the site where the work will be performed. So it doesn't sound like they're requiring it. However, I would recommend that you go. Even if it's not required. Especially with a construction project, you really have to see what it is that you're dealing with before you put in a bid. That really could affect what you put in your proposal to them. And it may deter you from even bidding. You never know. So go ahead, Patty. Yes.
I guess I would also say that, note that the information about this site visit is on page 44.
Yeah.
And you might have read through the top part and looked at the day it was due and, how to submit questions via email and some of those other pre-proposal sections, but they didn't include that up there. So that's why it's important to read the whole solicitation and then go back and read it again. Because you want to even take a yellow marker and start going through things, because that will help you organize your proposal as well.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, page 44. We're almost done with this document now, and they didn't even mention the site visit till then. So that is an excellent point. Okay, so section L here. Now we're at the instructions. So this is going to tell you what you need to do. And it's really detailed down to the file size, and they want them in PDF format only. They don't want Word documents. They don't want faxed. They tell you how to put them in volumes and how they should be labeled. all of these things. You need to pay attention to this and do it as they've said. So this is very important, okay? You know, I say in here to use the instructions to help you structure your layout. You know, label your submission how they are labeling it. Label it volume 1 and then factor 1, factor 2, and then under each factor is where you're going to start writing your information, okay? So just do it the way they have it in here. Don't, you know, you don't have to try to start making up your own format here because they're telling you what they want, okay? Each volume, they have to be separate. It's all in here, okay? They even have, you know, some page limit requirements here, so you need to pay attention to that. Late submissions, you know, they're talk about that, when they're due again, to whom and when, etc. All of that is in here, okay? Failure to address any of the requirements herein may result in rejection of your proposal. So if you don't, then they don't have to read it. And what a lot of wasted work that you went through just because you missed one little thing and then they're not even gonna read it. It would be really sad for that to happen. And again, and Patty mentioned, you know, that's what PTAC can help you do is, you know, we're not going to write your proposal for you, but we can make sure you understand the requirements and we can give things a second look, give you some feedback of maybe things you should change or include, and also make sure that you're submitting everything that you need to submit per what their instructions say, okay? Registration in SAM is mandatory to be considered for award. We've already talked about that. Here's volume 1 and your technical proposal. This tells you what you need to include, okay? They mostly, in this example, they want your corporate, your past performance history, and they want you to talk about projects that are relevant to this one. You know, what have you done that's relevant to this in size and scope? So, you know, after you've read the scope of work and you've looked at the drawings and now you're reading the instructions, you're going to use all of that information, scope of work, drawings, and the instructions and the evaluation criteria to put together your technical proposal. That's going to help you write what you need to write here, okay? You need to, you know, like I said, this one's mostly past performance, but there are times where you may see they want you to maybe talk about your method on how you're going to complete the work. Again, you want to use the scope of work and speak to the scope of work in your writing, okay? And how you write it. You know, this is really important. This note here says, notice the word shall. This doesn't mean maybe. So, you know, pay attention to words like that. Shall means you need to do it. You'll see, what are some of the other keywords? Shall, may. I mean, may is, you know, it's not a yes, you have to do it, but the government may do this, or they shall do this, or the contractor. What are the other ones? I can't think of them right now.
Well, must.
Must. Yeah, must. So you have to pay attention to words like that. Yes, you must do this. Okay. Let's see. This section, you know, further defines what relevant and recent means for the past performance that you're going to be submitting to them. So it needs to be, I think, you know, past 5 years. So, you know, anything older than that, they're not going to care about. Okay, so it needs to be relevant and recent. If any information is not included, may be found non-responsive and evaluated as unacceptable. So they say it right in there. Joint venture information. Here's factor 2 and your past performance submission requirements here. They provided a form as on the attachments, which is called a PPQ or past performance questionnaire, and that can be sent to your references basically on those past projects that you're going to submit. And in this situation, they say that you can either submit it with your offer, or you can have the company or the person who you did the work for, they could submit it directly to Rita. A lot of times it is to submit it directly to Rita. But the government is also going to use, again, their systems that they, for past performance, PPIRS or CPARS. These are systems that you may be in from maybe other government projects you've done that you have a rating system in. So they're going to use those systems. But if you don't have any past performance rating in those systems, then you can use the past performance questionnaire in the situation to give them past performance history, to give them something to go off of. They also mention, let's see, oh, it's in the evaluation criteria, so we'll get to it. Then they talk about volume 2. So volume 2 has to do with your price proposal, and here's the submittal requirements. Again, they want a cover letter, and they tell you exactly what they want on your cover letter. What you should have in your price proposal, firm fixed price, for the items in section B1. So that's way up at the top. We did talk about that form. They have a form that you want to fill in. Fully complete your SF 1442. So this is different. They don't want you to include that says your cover page. They want you to include your 1442 with your pricing. Okay. And all of your everything on that form that they have on the scheduled items. Scheduled items here, a copy of your bid bond or bid guarantee, fully complete submit section K, or print out your SAM profile. So this is section K again is your reps insert. So they either want you to fill it out by hand or print out your SAM. I would recommend printing it out. Fully complete and submit your self-performance calculation sheet. Again, this was an attachment that they provided for you to fill out. What else in here? Now, section M talks about the evaluation criteria. This one again is LPTA, or lowest price technically acceptable. That's their source selection method. They're going to talk about here how they're going to evaluate your past performance. Let's see, it's acceptable or unacceptable. So if you don't have anything, if you don't really have any past performance, let's see, where does it say it? They talk about it. Basically, if they can't determine if you have acceptable, if your past performance is acceptable or unacceptable, it's just kind of like a neutral rating. You're not really rated either way, but it also doesn't disqualify you. So you just need to read through the evaluation criteria to understand what it is that they're looking for, okay? Everything in here, so CPARS, FAPIS, PPERS, PPIRS, past performance questionnaires. Let's see, and then here's how they're going to evaluate your pricing. So again, and we're at the end. So, you know, as you're writing this, and you know, you need to look at the instructions with the evaluation criteria and the scope of work to put together your proposal. That everything's connected. It's all works together. So you need to understand all of it and what the requirements are to put everything together. And I really, 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 really strongly recommend reading the evaluation criteria multiple times, because I have seen things that are in the evaluation criteria that weren't part of the instructions. And so that's why you need to read it multiple times, is that something could be somewhere else that wasn't, like I said, in the instructions, and you could miss it. You could miss it because you weren't paying enough attention to the details. So what else? You guys have anything else to add? Patty, Deanna?
Well, maybe just a word of encouragement. I mean, awesome job going through all this. You know, these are quite involved, and this one seems pretty involved, but believe it or not, there's others that are even more involved. And so, you know, but don't let that deter you. Really, the idea here is to compartmentalize it, by section. Don't feel like you've got to internalize it all at once. Take some time with this, print it out, use your markers, take some notes, ask yourself some questions, follow up with the CO on things that aren't clear. Obviously, we want you to come to us, for help, because we'll read through the solicitation with you and help you along, so it's not so overwhelming. And I think the idea, once you work through, a couple of these, it's going to start making a lot more sense, and it's not going to be as overwhelming. You're going to start picking up the jargon and the instructions, and you're going to see the patterns in that uniform, contract format. And they really are quite organized and quite detailed. And if you really take the time to clear your mind and read it and think about it, you're gonna make progress, on whether it's an RFP or, a simple RFQ. But these are business opportunities.
Yeah. Yep. So just, quickly we'll go through, top 10 tips here. We have talked about most of these, but definitely, pay attention to that due date, the date and the time. You want to make sure and submit it on time, but, that helps you make a decision on whether you even have enough time to put something together. And on top of that, you really need to be getting notice of these, or, creating some saved searches in SAM or in beta SAM. You need to get notice of these in enough time, get notice on them regularly and in enough time so that you can have enough time to respond. But, if you're never looking at anything and all of a sudden you're randomly looking one day and you find something and it's like, oh, it's due tomorrow. I mean, that's going to be pretty hard, and it's stressful for you, and you don't want to do that. You want to do a good job on this. So make sure you're doing it enough time, getting notice of things.
And we have bid match service at PTAC. And so, Roz has mentioned a number of times setting up save searches at beta.sam.gov. That's for the federal solicitations. You can do the same thing at the state of Montana, but our bid match scrubs the federal databases, state databases, cities, counties, to some extent. We can set it up by region. And bid match isn't appropriate for every single company. It depends on where your company really fits in the whole spectrum of purchasing. But that's a nice way to have everything gathered in one place and get email notifications of opportunities that match your company's capabilities. And so if you have questions about that, make sure you talk with your PTAC advisor.
Yeah. And Patty's mentioned it too, read through the entire solicitation more than once, fully understand it. Like she mentioned, we didn't even see anything about that site visit until page 44. So that just shows you need to, there's details throughout the solicitation that you need to read through. It's not all going to be on the first page. Follow the instructions, provide them exactly what they're asking for. You don't need to provide a lot of extra fluff. Actually, you shouldn't. Just give them what they're asking for. Make it look nice and presentable and organized, but you don't have to be like, oh, talk about how you're this woman-owned small business and, give them this crazy company profile. If they're not asking for it, you don't need to give it to them. For proposals, again, use the evaluation criteria, the scope of work, to help you write that technical proposal, to write to speak to it, to provide what it is that they're asking for. Put your bid package in order of how the agency requests and label the sections the way they do. That just, it makes it easy for them, and they don't have to go looking for anything. You don't want them to have to go looking for the information. Make it obvious, put it together the way they ask you to. Don't wait until the last minute, especially with RFPs. RFQs, that may be different, especially if it's for a product, you need to already have that information. That's one thing, but for proposals, do not wait until the last minute. You'll regret it. Watch for discrepancies throughout the solicitation and bring them to attention to the point of contact. That will save you some headache, especially if it's wrong. Definitely go to the site visits, even if it's not required. Just do it. You need to see what it is that you're going to be working on. You need to see what it is that you're bidding on. If it's too much of a hassle for you to mobilize, or, all those things will, going to that site visit will help you make a lot of good business decisions. So I think it's really important. Ask clarifying questions during the Q&A. A lot of times those are answered, those are talked about at the site visit, and Q&As, can happen at the site visits, and those will get posted for everybody to read after those have all been collected. So make sure and do that. So you need to get notice of these in enough time so that you can read through it and think about what your questions may be, so you can get within that Q&A period. I say Control F is your friend. I'll show you what I mean. I'm sure some of you, all of you might even know about this, but you probably saw me do it. But if you're in your solicitation and you've read through it a few times, but you're just like, oh yeah, what was that one thing they were talking about? If you do Control F on your document, and this works in Word documents too, you get your little find button, and maybe you wanted to read something about pricing, so put in the word pricing. Well, there's 12 occurrences where the word pricing comes up, so this kind of helps you get through the document a little quicker after you've already read it, front to cover, or cover to the end. You know what I mean? So then you can come back and just click next to find where the pricing information that you were looking for, whatever it is. So those are my tips. Patty,
I have one more regarding the questions and answers. Those are often, the written questions and answers are often made into amendments to the solicitation. And so when you're getting ready to do a bid, you need to make sure you check back and acknowledge all the amendments and read through them in case it made some change to what the scope of work is. And so, and that's why, like in beta sam.gov, you can follow the opportunity, and then you'll get an email to, if there's any change that they make, they add an amendment, and then when you go look for the change, you would be able to see if it affects your pricing or the scope of work or anything like that, so you're not putting in a bid that doesn't cover, any new information. So that was my only tip. It was a great presentation, Roz. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, I know that was a lot of information for you guys. And I know, like I said, it's high level. I mean, I taught an RFP workshop, God, it might've been, I said, a year or two now ago, and it was a few hours. So to really get in the details about RFPs, it's a long time, and we just don't quite have the time for something like that. But that's, I hope that this gives you a good foundation to get you started and to understand a little bit more how these are laid out and what you need to submit and what you should be looking at. And then, take the advice of your PTAC advisor to help you maybe finish putting together your package.
And you're going to send out an evaluation to everyone, right, Roz?
Yep, evaluation, and I'll send out the recording once it's done. It takes. Yeah. I'll send it out, but it'll also be on our YouTube page. So I'll send out the link, and then if that expires, then you can go to our YouTube page to look at it.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Any more questions? Again, I'm sorry. I know that's a lot of like, whoa.
The way it is. I don't see any more questions here. Becky says, thank you. Very informational and well thought out webinar. Thanks for your time.
Good. Thank you, Becky. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can call it a day, and you guys have a good day, and
Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Roz.
Know how you can help. Okay. Bye.